Pinkalicious writes, 2 years ago, I bought the biggest pack of Martha Stewart glitter I could find to make Christmas ornaments. It's beautiful, but I don't know what to do with it now. I would love ideas to inspire me to pull it out of my stash and finally put it to use. Glitter Girl, can you help Pinkalicious get out her glorious glitter?
Of course I can. And it seems just about time to do one last episode of lots of Christmassy things. So this is the last of Christmassy themes for Glitter Girl in 2012. And I want to share a few different ideas with things you could do with loose glitter. So I'm starting with a really busy 12 by 12 paper. Something that you really love the design of, but when you look at it, it might be a little bit challenging. And I love this paper that was in the Christmas collection from Crate Paper, which is just a Christmas twist on a matte paper because it's the North Pole and that end of the globe, just a different perspective than we normally see on a matte paper. So you could use any busy pattern paper for this, and I'm going to use some white paint or some gesso to do a background technique with glitter. So you'll need your white paint and then something that's stable that you can use to apply the paint. You could use a business card, a credit card, that sort of thing. Don't use a credit card that you're actually going to use because I'm going to get paint all over it. You don't want that. So I've just cut a rectangle of cardboard from what comes at the back of my papers when I order from 2B's. That simple. And then you want a white acrylic paint or gesso, and you just want to load it up. Now you can do this with a brush, and it's kind of it's probably a little bit less messy if you do it with a brush, but I just tend to kind of load it from the jar this way. And then you're going to make a box in the middle of the page by applying the paint and pulling it across. And at first it's going to be quite pale, and then as you get spots with more paint, you'll see how it kind of adds up and creates a thicker layer. And the middle is going to be covered up, so that's not particularly worrying. We just want this idea of a box that's going to make the pattern a little more pale in the middle of the page so that we can add our photos and embellishment and all that sort of stuff in the middle here and just have this barrier between the photos and the busyness of the paper. It just works to kind of calm things down and keep the focus where you want it on your photos and stories. And you're just going to repeat this part of the process until you like the look. It's a very imperfect technique. You're not trying to get something in a perfect box. It's all a little haphazard and different. As you try with different amounts of paint and different things like that, it's always going to come out a little bit differently. Now, what you want to do is once it's gotten to this point where I don't have lots of wet paint, like it's not, if I touch it right now, it's just going to smudge. It's not going to slide across the page, if that makes sense. You want it to be a bit tacky, but not dry. And then take your glitter, and I don't want to cover the whole page. I just want to tap some into the design. So I'm just going to gently tap it around the page so that some of the sparkle gets picked up by that white paint. And then you can also decide if you want the sparkle to be on the top layer here, or if you want to let this dry and then drag another layer of paint across the top. Just depends on how much you want to play with the design. And I realize that including paint and glitter all on the background is a little bit out of some people's comfort zones. I do have some smaller glitter techniques to share with you today as well. But this is basically the process, and tiny little taps is the trick here. You can also do it kind of like spices and sprinkle it so that you get a pinch of glitter onto the page. But with this sort of technique, you don't want to dump the whole glitter pot on and then sprinkle it off, because you'll just get, it'll attach to all the paint, and that's not what we want. We want something a little bit more subtle than that. So once I've done that, then give it a good tap from the other side and kind of roll it around so that whatever's loose can reattach itself wherever. And if you find you have places like this where it's kind of clumped a little bit, you can normally just spread it out. But sometimes it will go to somewhere like an edge and it'll be more concentrated around an edge like that, but it will work quite well. So you can just kind of play around with the idea that it is very unpredictable, but that you're trying that on one single sheet of paper. It's not the end of the world if it goes wrong. And really I want to show part of this paper around the edge. I'm going to be putting things on top of this. So don't panic if you think it looks a little bit too messy at this point, because once it dries and we start adding more to the design, you can make it whatever style you want. So I'm going to set this aside to dry for a little while, and while that is drying, I'm going to share with you two smaller techniques for glitter that are a little less messy and a little less haphazard, so that there's a little bit of something for everybody. The first of those smaller projects is an entry from my Christmas journal this year, and I really liked putting the pink into this particular entry because most of my journal has white and craft and then accents in red and a little bit of this aqua green. But because this picture and the photos that are opposite it in my journal had a lot of pink because of what we were all wearing in the pictures, I decided to take anything that was left with my Christmas supplies that had pink and pile it all into that particular entry. And although I really like that, I also want to bring a little bit more attention to the red so that when you turn to that page, it doesn't seem really out of place. So I thought that adding some red glitter would be exactly the right sort of thing to do that. So I've got a little pot of red glitter and I've got some glossy accents. Basically, I'm just looking for any liquid glue that's really easy to apply. So I'm just going to go by each of these little thicker snowflakes and add a little dot of the glue and do that 3 times in a little triangle surrounding each of the snowflakes. And I'm going to do each of them and then let it set just a minute so that the little bubbles of glue won't run or drip into another shape. I want them to stay nice little circles. So it's almost like I've stuck gems to the page, except instead of a rhinestone, it's loose glitter. And this should add just a little bit more attention to the red. So now I can just go back and cover each of those with the red glitter and shake off the excess. But what I will do is let it sit for a little bit. Glossy Accents is a slow drying glue compared to the sorts of adhesive we tend to use on our photos and things like that. So I want to let it sit to maximize the glitter holding to that glue and not ending up everywhere else. Now, if you're really concerned about any one-of-a-kind photos, I wouldn't use loose glitter on that page. I wouldn't use it with something you can't replace. I am going ahead and putting it right near the photo here, and I'm not too worried because it's a digital photo that I have a copy of. That's a tiny little version printed on my home printer. I would hardly say that was an heirloom. So in this case, I'm not particularly concerned if the glitter gets a little bit stuck to the photo, but if it was something really, really special that I couldn't replace, by all means, I wouldn't want to use loose glitter. I'm going to set this one aside to dry and show you that third project. So I'm doing a little bit of multitasking here today. And this one is a quick little Christmas card. I've used a Lawn Fawn owl stamp, and they come in all different animals that you can color in. I just chose an owl for today. And backed it with some red pattern paper and some green cardstock that I embossed with the chevron embossing folder. Just a nice way to add a little something extra to jazz up your cardstock if you want to make some really simple cards. This could also work as a gift tag, of course. It doesn't need to be this big because the stamp's quite small. So if you wanted to take normal shipping tags and put them through an embossing folder to make all your your to from tags on your presents. They'll look really, really lovely. And people outside crafting have no idea how you make the paper like that. So it's a little magic trick to them. Okay, so I've colored in my owl with some markers and colored pencils, and I just want to add a little something because this is a very simple and plain front to the card. So I'm going to use the same glitter and the same glue that I just used with the journal page. So just move this off my cardstock so I have that as a background. And instead of drawing it straight on, because I don't want to do little dots, I'm going to use a paintbrush and just going to make a tiny little pool of the adhesive and pick it up with my paintbrush and paint it onto the stamp design. So this is going to be a lot less thick than the way I just adhered it to the journal page. That also means it's going to dry more quickly, so I want to get the glitter on straight away before I paint another part of the picture. It also lets me see what the look is, what it's going to look like. So if I decide I need more glitter, less glitter in that area, I have that possibility. Now I want to keep some of the coloring of the scarf just as it is. I don't want to fill in the whole thing. So I'm just going to paint in part of the design to add a bit of texture to the scarf. And the paintbrush just gives me a lot more control of the glitter placement than using the bottle, and makes it thinner so it's not a huge layer. So now I have that little bit of sparkle added into my Christmas cards, and it's really, really quick. So if I had all of that done on all my cards and thought, oh, I really wish they were just a little bit more sparkly, it would just take those few seconds to add a little something to make it so that they're definitely a little Christmassy and special. So a paintbrush and some liquid adhesive. I'm using Glossy Accents, but you could use any sort of liquid adhesive that you like using. So let's come back to that journal page, which should be a little more stable now. And now I have just little spots of glitter, almost as if they were an embellishment that I stuck to the page, but instead they're just those little bubbles of the liquid adhesive covered in glitter and let to dry. So I will make sure I keep this out of the page protector for a good few hours. I'll probably just leave it out overnight and put it in the page protector tomorrow morning, and that way I know that when I put it in the page protector, the weight of the other pages isn't going to squash that glue before it's set up into that little three-dimensional dot. So two really, really quick and simple and a lot less messy techniques than the 12 by 12 page. So just wanted to share those with you as a little reminder. And of course, now I can take all of my glues, make sure my lid's on, make sure the glue is off my paintbrush so I don't ruin that. And I can funnel all of my glitter back into the pot. And I will tell you that if you get to the end of a glitter pot without having dumped it on the floor, you've actually used the whole glitter pot, I think you deserve a big glittery gold star, because a glitter pot on little things like this will last a very long time. So it's no surprise that the set that you purchased is still around and you still have more projects to make with that. It'll last a long while. So by now my 12 by 12 page should be pretty much dry, so I can go ahead and start adding more paper and my photos to this page to finish the bigger, different project for this week. Because I'm starting with the turquoise base color of the map in the paper, I decided I wouldn't try to force this page into a red and green Christmas color scheme, and instead would go with some pink wintry Christmas photos. And so I chose one pattern paper that's quite subtle and one that's also a bit artsier. I hate to use the word artsy, but this sort of freestyle design where it's a little bit less computer generated than some of our other neat and tidy designs. So this one is quite simple and plain. This is from Crate Paper's Little Bo Peep, their baby girl collection. So it's a really small pink and white repeating pattern with just a little bit of distressing to the edges. And then for the one that's a bit more freestyle, this is from the Basic Gray Soleil collection, and it's called Mandarin Orange. And I'm going to cut a few different pieces from this, and I kind of want to use both sides. I like the fact that there's the pink and the blue in this side, but also this central pale pink design is quite nice as well, and these border strips might even come in useful. So I think between those two papers I'll probably be all set. I've cut this box to an 8x8 square so that I can add some color to the middle of that design without covering up too much of it. So I wanted to make sure that I felt that this section was the nicest, where the glitter looked the most natural, and I really liked that part of how the paint and the glitter came together. So I'm going to make sure that bit is still on show and adhere this to the rest. Now, I will say that when you're adhering things onto glitter, it's much more difficult than just your normal paper to paper adhering. So I did start with my normal adhesive, but then I'm going to bring in some double-sided tape just to help keep things secure. And this just presses down, and then you can remove that top red layer. Comes in all different widths and options. There we go. So I can add some of that to each corner, and that will just help. Now, I do realize that because I added all that paint, I have warped the paper a little bit at this point. You may notice that the corners are coming up from the edge. When it's just a little bit up off the page like that, I don't worry at all, because once it's in my album and it's backed with another layout, the warp goes away. It ends up fine in the page protector. As long as it's sitting on the desk, it will curl up just a bit off the edges. And you can press it out with heavy books on top or anything like that, but I find I don't need to do any extra pressing. I just put it in the page protector and put it in the album, and it ends up just fine. So I wouldn't worry too much. Give it a try and see what you think. From that larger piece of paper, I've cut 5 different pieces, different sizes. So I have 2 narrow strips and 1 quite large box and 2 medium-sized pieces. And I've just cut them out with scissors and then added some brown ink to the edges so it looks a bit more purposeful. And I'm just going to start layering these up from the largest pieces to the smaller and adding in my photo. I just have 1 picture for this layout, but that's okay because I wanted to include quite a bit of writing, so that will work out fine as the balance. So I'm just going to kind of move these pieces around until I find where I think I want them to go, and then start adhering everything. Point, I've got lots of different layers of paper making this frame around the photo, but now I have all of this pink and there's nothing turquoise in the pink pulling that color back together. So I want to use that turquoise glitter one more time, and this time I'm going to use that same really wide double-sided tape, and I'm going to cut it into some triangle shapes so that I'll have little arrows that point toward the photo. So I just want to take a box like this of the tape and then cut it into that triangle. And with a little patience and some cleaning your scissors later, you can do pretty much any shape you want from the tape. And then here's how I make the next one match, is that I go ahead and take the backing off of the first one, and I use that as my template to cut the next one. So I just hold it in place and cut the same shape over again. So I'm going to make, I think, at least 3 arrows, and if I need a 4th one to join the background to the paper, then I'll cut 4. So here are all my double-sided tape triangles ready to go. I ended up doing 4 along the horizontal and 3 on the vertical, and then I can just make sure they're all stuck down and peel off all that red backing tape, and then I can coat each of these with glitter. Now if I want to do multicolors of glitter, I can keep just certain pieces still covered. So maybe I will do a few of the arrows in pink to mix it up. So I'll start with the turquoise. And then I'll get rid of all this excess and then do the pink so that I don't end up with a big muddle in the middle. And then I'll come back and do the remaining triangles in pink glitter. This one is a doodlebug glitter. There's a really iridescent. And now I have lots and lots of glitter included on my page. And if you're concerned about too much glitter feeling a bit loose, the first step is always to tap the page from behind just to get rid of anything that's not completely stuck. But then another good idea is to just take some other paper element. Just take a scrap of paper, but I'm just going to use what was on my trimmer there, and burnish it to the page, which means to put something over the top and then put pressure on the glitter. So I'm just taking my brayer and rolling it over the top of all those adhesive arrows. And then I'll come back over here and do the same thing. And that way, everything that's remaining there is really stuck to the adhesive. It's not loose. And then I can brush away any little strays. If you end up with strays on the photo that are causing you a little bit of trouble, 2 things to try. One of them is a paintbrush. That's the easiest way to just kind of go around and collect stray bits of glitter. And if you have any that are just really wanting to stick to the paper of your layout, where there's a bit of perhaps oil from your hands has gotten onto the page and it's the sort of thing that you can't even see, but it's sticking, a dryer sheet will sometimes work. So you just take a dryer sheet and wrap it around your finger and rub it over the places where the glitter or the embossing powder really wants to stick, and that will unstick it usually. So just have a light hand and then it doesn't leave any sort of mark on the page. And one last thing, if you're doing that burnishing step and you're doing it on something that's a wet glue rather than a tape, do make sure that you don't use the same scrap of paper more than once, because you'll end up with the adhesive transferring. Just any little bits of glue will transfer over, and when you put it down a second time, you'll end up with a bit of a mess. But with the tape, there's nothing that's going to come unstuck there, so it's not a problem. So even if the paint technique was a little bit out of your comfort zone, you could do this technique with the double-sided tape without the paint technique, and you'd have a cleaner look to that same design. So you could just use a plain pattern paper in the background or plain cardstock, and you could incorporate that tape into the design. So I'm going to go ahead and get my writing on this page and then finish it with a title and a little bit more embellishment. I've added all my journaling just straight onto that pink lined paper, and then the title is made from some Dear Lizzie thickers and some Mini Market letter stickers in the smaller type there from October Afternoon. And I just want to add a tiny bit more embellishment. I know that there's actually quite a lot going on, but I purposely wanted to add something that was not sparkly to kind of tone down how much glitter there is. I really like that there's so much sparkle, but I'd also like there to be a little bit that's not sparkle too. So I'm going to use 3 of the Mistable Snowflake Thickers. Now I could make these sparkly. You can paint them with a layer of glue and add the glitter right on top of them. And you can mist them to be any color, but I actually just want to leave them as they are and have them white and fabric topped. And then I just wanted to find some different labels or something that would match. So I pulled out these 2 sticker sheets because they had some turquoise elements, and I'm just looking for quite plain things. So I'm going to use some of these tabs. They're designed to fold over so that you can put them on the side of a page and have both sides showing. But if you just want to use them flat on the layout, you can cut them into 2 pieces and have the other color for later. So I'm just going to use the turquoise side and add a little bit of ink to the edge to make it match everything else. And I want to have 3 little spots where I can include something like that. So I think what I will do is I'll take them all from this same sheet. I'll use 2 of the turquoise tabs because there are 2 of those, and then I'll use 1 piece that's different. It's the same color turquoise, but it's a border sticker. So that I have, each piece has something in common, but 2 of them are identical and 1 of them is a little different. So just tuck this one underneath this layer here. And then this border sticker has just a chevron design that has that same sort of repeating the pointing design of the arrows. So I'll add that underneath the title. So those are all from the Pebbles collection. And the sticker sheet is both sides, so you get quite a lot on those. Okay, so have this facing the same way as the other horizontal arrows. And keep in mind, stickers on top of paint and glitter may not work, so if this comes loose, I can just go back with some narrow version of the same double-sided tape, and that will secure it. But at the moment, it looks okay, so I'm just going to go with that for now. And then I'm going to add 1 fabric snowflake thicker to each of these. And then maybe just a little bit of pink in each of those groupings. So perhaps a rhinestone or an enamel dot or a little pearl. Got some pink rhinestones. This may be a little much, adding rhinestones to a page that already has quite a lot of glitter, but I'll give it a go and see how it works. So for these labels, I'll just follow the line on the design to have 3 in a row, and then I'll do something similar with that border sticker. Just add them in a little row down here. So just repeating something really simple, 1 snowflake, 1 turquoise element, and 3 pink rhinestones. Okay, so that will be my page for today. So this is our final Christmassy episode, because next week when I see you again, it will be the 26th. So your challenge this week is to make a page with loose glitter and upload it to the gallery and share it with us all. And then I'll see you next time for something that's a little moving on from Christmas, and we'll do a different topic, something a little special. So drop by next week after Christmas and have a very happy holiday. Thanks for watching.
Join us next week for the continuing adventures of Glitter Girl and the ongoing mystery of the scrapbooker behind the mask at 2peasinabucket.com.